7, 8. We have 8 medium shapes. Okay. This brings my attention, my next lecture, to understanding why there's not an equal number, but kind of a disproportionate number of large, medium, small shapes, is because it's kind of what makes the image very interesting. If you look at this as, if I stacked it up, if I stacked up these shapes according to size, small, I'm going to keep it up here. This is what I like to call the cake theory. Okay. The cake theory is actually all about proportions. It's about the distribution between large, medium, and small. So we've got large, medium, and small. So, if you imagine our cake, you know when you get that big birthday cake surprise, cakes are usually made up of multiple layers, but you have a base, you have the midsection, and you have the top. Okay, and you have what's up here, what I call the details. Put on some little designs here, but this is a large base, right? Large, M for medium, and S for small, and D for details. If you look at all character designs, they actually have all these elements, right? So if I scroll back to my Mickey Mouse drawing, and I were to just cross-examine the large, so I have large here, large, medium, small, large, large, medium. Actually, not large, these are medium. Small shapes, small eyes, right? And the details actually come in here. Look at the details. Details, the tail is a detail. This little dimple here is a detail as well. Even the little triangles here are details. So the details kind of are the icing on the cake, or it's the candles on the cake. But it's the thing that's going to make it, give it that range, that dynamism on our entire image, right? So now that we've kind of understand the general proportions of this cake theory, one of the next things I would like you to do is, well, how do we mix it up without completely changing it, or without having to reinvent the wheel, right? So if I got this cake, and what I'm going to do without having to kind of redraw it, so you guys can kind of quickly follow along, is I'm going to split them up into just 3 very basic components. You have your large, medium, and small, right? And your details. Now, what if I switched it up? What if I did this? I put my large up here, I put my medium down here, and I put the small at the very bottom, and I put the candles on the very top. Now, would you say that in this scenario, that the design still works? And the answer is yes. Of course it absolutely works. I mean, even the shape in general still looks dynamic. It still feels like it fits. It's a little obscure. You wouldn't see this in a real cake. but it still works. It's still interesting, right? Because the reason why it's interesting is it has all the proportions. Now, what if I did this? Does that work? And the answer is yes. It's the same deal. You know, it's a little bit, again, we're really pushing proportions, we're exaggerating form, but it still works. It's still in the realm of large, medium, and small, and detailed shapes. I'm just going to do one more, just for kicks. This is where we get a little bit wacky. All right, what if I did something like this? Does this work? Absolutely. It's the same thing. Notice how the height has changed? This was the original height, and I kept it fairly consistent in the first 3 images. But as we progressed to this last one, it got a lot taller. But the proportions, it's still dynamic because it still retains the same proportional properties of large, medium, small. So this is kind of where I want to take the next set of lectures and demos. Is I really want you guys to kind of push this proportion. Okay? So please refer back to the cake theory. This is incredibly crucial. This is going to be applied all throughout the entire 12 weeks that you're with us. And I will show you guys multiple demonstrations. And if you guys forget, this is going to be something that's going to be constantly brought up. Okay, so Mickey Mouse. Let's get rid of all these notes here. I think you guys kind of understand the point. So what I want to do is I want to mix it up. Mix up Mickey Mouse just the way I mixed up this diagram right here, this cake theory, right? If you want, you can have, you know, in your notes, you can have this on a separate piece of paper or on the side just to kind of remind yourself of what you're doing. But typically I like to just kind of have this up as a reference, and I like to start drawing a lot of these elements out. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to have you guys do the line drawing here. Sorry, I'm trying to get my tablet's acting a little strange. Is to kind of switch things up. So what if instead of a large head, what if I had a small head, right, for Mickey Mouse? If I had large ears. If I had a skinny nose. Large eyes. If I had a skinny body. Right, so I'm basically kind of doing the opposite. Look at big hands, like these really mutated large fingers. Don't worry if your drawings are ugly here. I mean, at this phase, it's just kind of, we're just testing our designs. This isn't something I expect you guys to kind of put into your portfolio right away. We're going to be doing tons of these types of exercises. So we have that kind of Mickey Mouse. Notice the proportions on this. I'm going to fill it in again with this gray, just so that we can clearly see the proportions. You can see that this is still the same character, but instantly it has such a different vibe. I mean, the entire character design has changed just through proportions. I didn't add anything. I didn't give it a brand new feature. I didn't give it 2 noses or 3 eyes. I didn't give it a hat or anything. It's a mere change of proportion. And that's where design comes in. This is the start of understanding good proportions versus bad proportions. This is the start of understanding why certain things look good versus why certain things, look different. It's pretty straightforward, right? I'm going to double my line weight so you guys can see. So I'm going to put this off to the side. And now if you guys didn't want to start off with the line work and you want to try something different where you want to start off with just the shapes, feel free to block it in. I'm just going to do this as a one-off, just so you guys can see. It might be a lot easier to kind of look at the overall shape as we're drawing this, but arms. We're going to give him really flat feet. We're going to give him a really thick tail. Okay, let's fill in those lines. This is like the obese version of Mickey Mouse. Give him a little brow line here. Red small buttons. We'll give him big buttons. And he has a really fat tail. Again, this is another example. You can see the contrast and difference between the original Mickey Mouse, this more skinnier but huge ears, And we got this one right here. It's a little more obese version, right? He's been eating way too much of the Mickey Mouse candy or gumbo that they serve there. Alright, so let's try something that's more in line with, something like this here. Okay? So we're gonna kind of invert some of the proportions. So since I went with a large head, small and large head, let's do one where it's maybe a medium-sized head, just like the regular design. But we're gonna go with a large nose, or maybe a medium-sized nose. Let's do a small nose here. We have the details. What if we made Mickey Mouse's ears? What if we turned it the other way? A little funky, but again, you're gonna get some weird, really weird designs here. I'm gonna change his ears. We're gonna make them slightly more oval. Here, large head, medium eyes, maybe something skinny for the body. So we'll go small for the body. And let's go large for the hands. And we have the feet. Let's do this really large feet. We give him long hands, or long arms. I'll connect it right back to the shoulder. So you're going to get some really weird designs here, but that's kind of the beauty of it. And if you guys think about just designs in general, it's all about just the variations that you can come up with. That's all it is. Outside of having a really pretty painting or rendering, if you guys can come up with really interesting proportions, it's kind of more powerful than having a really pretty painting. We'll give it some really skinny eyes. Because, you can actually paint this. This can be a pretty painting once the idea is set, right? So there's another idea right here. Let's do one last one. I want to do it kind of based off of this maybe. Something a little bit wider on the bottom and skinnier on the top, right? I don't think we've quite have that yet. We have skinny on the top, but it's balanced out by the large ears. This is both fat on the top and bottom, but it's balanced by the small ears. This is kind of the reverse of that, where we have the heavy on the top and the skinny on the bottom, and it's balanced by the large feet. Okay, so we're going to do the opposite. this drawing. So what if I had a large body, right? We're talking about huge oval or circle. This is the Mickey Mouse that never got any exercise. And the feet are so crunched. Not even a long tail, just a little nub for a tail. Okay? We have a medium body, or we'll go with the small body, I'm sorry. Very small body. Almost to the point where we can't really see the body. Put in his buttons here. And then we have the head. What if the head was actually this elongated head, the nose up here, small ears. Alright, let's fill this guy in with the same gray, just so we can see it. But you guys can already see that this is a completely different design. So what I would like you guys to do is, just keep in mind the type of character that you want to design for this assignment. We're going to be doing 3 different subject matters: character, vehicle, and some sort of architecture. Okay, but if you guys don't get this proportion assignment right the first time, don't worry about it. It's gonna take a little bit of time, but the most important thing is that you guys understand it. Okay? And don't worry so much about the crudeness of the drawing. You guys notice how crude the drawing is here that I'm doing? And just because for the demo, if the instructors are doing something in 5 minutes, it doesn't mean that you guys should be doing it in 5 minutes. We're just doing it just to kind of make sure that we're on the clock. But I want you guys to kind of make sure that you're following along, but you're getting the information right. Okay? So check that out, guys. Look at the vast variety of designs that we just generated here. It's actually pretty cool. Let me just bring Mickey Mouse down to size here. But you guys can kind of see this is our lineup, right? And if I were to look at the proportions, silhouette, look at the vast amount of proportions that I've created. I mean, they're fairly unique and different in their own way. But you guys can see how Mickey Mouse is generally a little bit more centered, right? There's a lot of medium and large shapes here. In the second Mickey Mouse, there's a lot of large and medium, but it's kind of balanced by a lot of small shapes. This is predominantly a lot of large shapes. This is a lot of medium and small, and this is kind of a mixture of both, just almost inverted. I could have probably gone a lot skinnier with the head, almost to the degree where the head is just like a little pill of some sort, almost like a little pickle, just to really kind of give it that dramatic effect that we're really pushing the proportions. But this is essentially kind of what I want you guys to do for this portion. Okay, on to the next. Alright guys, the next segment is now vehicles, one of my favorites. Again, feel free to use what I have provided here you guys in this video demonstration, or I highly recommend you guys choosing your own reference. But for the draw over, I'm actually going to use this particular tank since it's easy and it's already extracted out. Let's put this here. I have my cake theory, this little proportion guide, just the top left, just to kind of give me a reminder. And we're going to just do a quick breakdown again, just like what we did with the Mickey Mouse drawing. Okay, so I'm going to use the number 1. Just make sure it's the right one. Yep, it has a little taper. I like using the number 1 for really quick, wispy lines. The number 2 has the really thick. I'm going to rename this again. Thick. This has the dynamics on there. This has the texture. And this one here has the opacity. Okay. So I'm going to use the one with the dynamic lines. Just to kind of do a quick copy of this thing. This might be easier to use a thick, because it's going to give us the nice consistent lines. But you guys can see here that I'm going to start off generalizing the object by just blocking out the masses. The masses are essentially just the large shapes, right? And if you look at this entire design or this image, you can see that it's predominantly built up of rectilinear shapes, right? Okay, here we go. Get the treads in. We're not going to get too bogged down by all the details of the treads, but I just want to quickly inform the front, just the planes, basically the front side and the back side. Same with the sides right here. Let's just quickly do a very informative line that's going to give us a better understanding of the direction of the shapes that we're looking at here. So a lot of cool detail that, you know, we're going to implement into our other drawings, but again, this is my simple version so that when explaining it, it's pretty straightforward. And this is like our cool gadgets. All this cool stuff up here. I'm going to use my dynamics line just so I can just quickly suggest all this detail here. Just going to fill it in. And I'm using basically, I'm going to use the the tank, this image here, as just as a quick template to kind of fill it in. So what I did was I basically extracted the image here. This is my tank image. Go at 100%, and I can just lock the layer, and I can just kind of fill it in really quickly, just like that. Fill it into the right color, just so we can kind of examine the object. Relatively simple.